After being contested over for so long, the falls and the river eventually ended up in 2 countries. And today the Rainbow Bridge offers one of the most unique and interesting border crossing experiences. I can't believe I'm actually walking to Canada. And easy as that, I'm officially in Canada. That was neat. First time clearing international customs on foot. Our first view from the Canadian side. With nearly twice the population of its American counterpart, the origins of Niagara Falls, Ontario date back to late 17th century French settlers. In 1763, the region fell under British colonial rule. Then, following the American Revolution, it became a safe haven for loyalists, and it was also the site of some of the bloodiest and most pivotal battles of the War of 1812, and was even the site of a World War I German internment camp. The city was officially incorporated in 1903, and thanks to none other than the French, it holds the proud title of honeymoon capital of the world. I always thought it'd be Venice or Paris. This is the famous cliff, then the street where all the tourist traps are. Sadly, this is usually the first thing you see when you search the Canadian side. I'll be staying well clear. Although these days Niagara Falls, Ontario has a reputation for being even more modern and commercialized than its American counterpart, having had a thriving tourist economy since the late 19th century, one historical gem that still remains largely off the tourist radar is this spectacular monastery you see behind me, the Monastery of Mount Carmel. Constructed in 1894 to serve as a hospice and Carmelite training center, it was the first Carmelite residence in Niagara Falls, and today the monastery serves as a spiritual retreat and houses a conference center, wine cellar, and shrine dedicated to Saint Teresa of Lisieux. The chapel was added in 1925 to accommodate the growing number of students. The windows, which depict the life of Mary and the prophet Elijah, were imported from England and stained in Toronto, while the floor was imported from Belgium. Its colors represent the Marian and alien traditions of the Carmelite order. Standing right above Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side. Yeah, a lot of people prefer the Canadian sides for two reasons. One, because you can see all 3 waterfalls much better, and 2, you're also a lot closer to the falls. Yeah, from up here you can really get a sense of the sheer power of it. Although Canada shares just one of the 3 falls, Horseshoe Falls, it does happen to be the largest, and it also accounts for 90% of the fall's total water flow. Look over there. Though I must say I kind of prefer the more natural setting of the American side. And right now we're actually standing on a section of the Trans-Canadian Trail, the longest hiking trail on Earth. And as you can see, it's also much more crowded. It's just like on our side, they have a shuttle system that runs to all the major tourist sites, most of which are on the blue line and green line. But unfortunately, this one isn't free. You can get either a 24-hour or 48-hour pass. Then if you want to go to Niagara on the lake, it's extra. Yeah, it's rare to be able to vacation in the US or Canada and be able to sightsee without a car. And right now, I'm catching the green lane to the Niagara Glen and Botanical Gardens. We've stopped in front of the Temple of 10,000 Buddhas. Completed in 2001 and towering 7 stories, it is the largest Buddhist temple in North America. And yes, it does indeed contain 10,000 Buddha statues, the largest being 5 stories high and the smallest just a few centimeters. Oh wow, have a look at this. This is absolutely spectacular. Today we're going to be hiking the Niagara Glen on the Canadian side, and just over there is the whirlpool where we were earlier on the American side. So that's the way down to the Glen. We descended down into the Glen, and this habitat you see around me is what's known as a Carolinian forest, and some of these trees are as old as 600 years. These rocks are a record of the region's entire natural history, with the oldest layers dating as far back as 400 million years. The presence of limestone, dolostone, and marine fossils are evidence that this area was at one time a large tropical seabed. 440 million years ago, we would have been standing in a shallow tropical sea just a few degrees south of the equator. What we're actually looking at is thousands of living organisms turned to stone. After the ancient seabed receded, the once lush coral reef transformed into large limestone and dolostone boulders that formed part of the Niagara riverbed. 8,000 years ago, it would have been impossible to walk here, as these rocks would have been pummeled by the powerful falls. Now comes the fun part, going back up these stairs. Yeah, the shuttles are fairly frequent, but if you do take the shuttle here, do you know this is a northbound stop only? We're exploring the Niagara Falls Botanical Garden. Nice little botanical garden located on the Canadian side. The nicest section is further back, but we're going to see this prairie habitat first. The gardens opened to the public in 1936, and what's great about them is that unless you want to visit the Butterfly Conservancy, they're actually free to the public. Yeah, this actually used to be a school of horticulture. And even today, horticulture professors still bring their students out here for classes. I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on coming here today, because I've seen so many botanical gardens, but this actually ended up being one of my highlights. Maybe for Canadians or Europeans, these gardens aren't too impressive, but by American standards, they definitely rival anything we have in the States. I've noticed that the Canadian side in general is much more nicer landscaped with all the flowers.
Na odchudzenie niech ci coś da, czy co?
Oh, we have a flock of wild turkeys over there. This district we're traveling through right now is known as Queenston Heights. On the morning of October 13th, 1812, American forces made their way across the river and stormed the heights, vastly outnumbering the small army of Brits, Canadians, and natives headed by General Isaac Brock, as well as a small army of black loyalists, many of whose descendants still live in Niagara Falls today. Unfortunately for Brock, this would be the last battle he ever fought. The only members of the unit who refused to retreat were about 100 native warriors who bravely held off the Americans for several hours until the British and Canadians were able to regroup and take back the heights. Had it not been for those brave men, we may very well be traveling through American territory right now. Leaving Canada, there's a toll you have to pay, which I recommend paying in loons, because then it's slightly cheaper. The Canadian side has more entertainment, amenities, and much better shopping and food options. And it's also friendlier, has less crime, and a higher standard of living. There's also much more to see. In fact, I'm going to come back tomorrow. But on the flip side, the US side is cheaper and feels much more authentic. Some more shots of the famous Niagara Falls. Yeah, it's not very high. There are waterfalls in my own town that are way higher, but it is spectacular nonetheless. Personally, if you can afford it, I'd recommend staying on the Canadian side.